Hey folks, I'm NJ, the host of A Crime Most Queer. Join me every Thursday when I unpack true crime affecting the South African LGBTQ community. Each week, I take an in-depth look at some well-known and not so well-known cases, where we will explore the people involved, the circumstances that led up to the crime being committed, the police investigation, and the eventual trial, if there was one. I also look at some of the conspiracy theories that sprang up around the case and try to figure out if they actually hold water. A Crime Most Queer is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Girl, you know it's not true. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
And you're the one I think about most every time. And when you crack a smile and everything you do. So we give this Grammy back now. Brad Howell and Sean Davis are the real singers, and I think they should get this Grammy. We ended it. Robin Fabb ended Milli Vanilli, not Frank Farren. We told him, if we can't sing on our record, you have to go on the press and say that we don't sing.
Milli Vanilli was a little bit after my time in my consciousness as a young girl, but the joke was always that you were lip syncing, or like any student event where you had to lip sync or karaoke, you were always making fun of them. Like they were always the butt of the joke. But I don't think I ever really knew what the source of the joke was, even before I did this episode.
Did you know that it was somewhat of a hoax after? Like, were you conscious of the music, but you already knew it was a hoax, or did you find out in real time?
I don't even think I was conscious of. I knew Blame It on the Rain. I was vaguely conscious of the music, but the whole thing about Milli Vanilli, when I knew of it as a child, was that they were fakers. You know, they lip synced, and it was really uncool and really embarrassing. It was the embarrassment blanket over like whatever they were as musicians.
See, I was taken in by the hoax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew, because I was into a lot of, punk rock, things that were cool, but I assumed that it was at least them doing. I mean, I like the catchy songs. I love pop music. I love music of that era. I still do, because I watched a lot of MTV even when MTV first. I think I watched the debut of it. That's how much MTV I watched.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear their voices, and you're probably going to talk about this, is they have very thick Eastern European accents, but they sing with a relatively perfect English accent.
Yeah. And again, this is a disconnect that I totally had, but it's interesting. And I think we owe a lot to Milli Vanilli with what we consume as pop music consumers now, which now this feels like way less of a hoax than it did at the time. The guy behind Milli Vanilli was Frank Farian, a German producer who was looking for the next big European pop sensation. In the 1970s, Farian struck gold with Boney M, a German disco group seemingly fronted by 4 Caribbean singers. In reality, Farian himself had provided the vocals on the group's first album. His first priority was image. Talent was secondary? Tertiary? 7th? 14th. And that's kind of how it went when he met 2 young club kids named Rob Pilatus from Germany and Fabrice Morvan from France in 1988. They fit the bill. But I also want to mention, too, he had already done this before. He had already faked vocals with his own voice. So he had this track record to begin with. So Rob and Fabrice were young, they partied, they were aspiring pop stars, they were attractive, they were easy marks, but also kind of European anti-heroes and best friends. Rob was the son of a black American soldier and a white German woman who was born in New York City, but spent the first several years of his life in a Bavarian orphanage. He was adopted when he was 4 years old. Growing up in Munich, he grappled with racism and feelings of isolation. It was only through music and breakdancing that he found his identity. When he met Fab, who had been raised in Paris by parents from a Caribbean island of Guadeloupe. When he met Fab, who had been raised in Paris by parents from Guadeloupe, he found someone with similar interests and life experiences. Something clicked between us, Rob told the Los Angeles Times in 1989. Maybe it's because we're both black people who grew up in foreign cities that don't have too many blacks. In the early days of their friendship, Rob and Fab were regulars on the Munich club scene. They dabbled in dancing and modeling, but what they really wanted to do was make music. They began hanging out with local studio musicians in Farian's orbit and played a few club shows. That's kind of when Farian took notice of them. Then, and this is the most important part of the Milli Vanilli controversy in my opinion, Farian invited Rob and Fab to his studio and signed the duo to a record deal. But what was this deal? We walked into a trap, not knowing it was a trap, Fab said on record. In his version of the events, he and Rob signed the contract without realizing they were being hired purely to lip sync. They wanted to sing, and the first time Farian played them Girl You Know It's True, the song that would become their international breakthrough, he presented the track as instrumental. Little did they know Farian had already recorded vocals with professional singers. By the time they knew the truth, Fab said, they had already spent advance money on new clothes and their trademark hair extensions. They were suddenly in debt and they couldn't walk away. Once the group took off, it became even harder to come clean about their vocals. Farian claimed that Rob and Fab were never going to be proper recording artists. I'd never heard such a bad singer, Farian said of Rob in a Los Angeles Times interview. They wanted to sing, they wanted to write songs, it never happened. They went instead to discos till 4 a.m. and slept all day. All they ever really did was party. Someone who lives like that can't make good music. It was a crazy idea, he told the LA Times. I thought, okay, it's just for discotheques and clubs. But his mix of pop, R&B, and hip-hop was perfectly pegged for the times, and Milli Vanilli quickly became the music industry's darling. Something that nobody saw coming, not anybody involved in this story. Girl You Know It's True hit #1 in Germany and got Milli Vanilli signed to Arista Records. This was in large part due to their music videos, which I also vaguely remember, a lot of cool pantomiming and clothes, and of course, their hair, those extensions. Milli Vanilli then scored 5 top hits on the Billboard Hot 100, including 3 #1 singles, Baby Don't Forget My Number, Girl I'm Gonna Miss You, and Blame It on the Rain. All 4 singles were on the album Girl You Know It's True, which went 6 times platinum in America and sold millions more copies worldwide. On July 21st, 1989, the group's backing tape malfunctioned during a club MTV tour stop in beautiful Bristol, Connecticut. The words Girl You Know It's repeated over and over. I'm sure you remember this. This is something, again, I think I vaguely remember, but it may just be the mythology of all of this. Rob panicked and ran off stage. The incident had no huge impact really on their sales, but Rob would later call the mishap the beginning of the end. And of course, this is where all the rumors started that kind of overshadowed them as performers as a whole. After the embarrassment of the Connecticut show, Rob and Fab demanded to sing on their next album. Tensions grew against Farian, and on November 15th, 1990, he revealed in a press conference that Milli Vanilli hadn't sung a note on Girl You Know It's True, their 1989 multi-platinum debut album. Of course, days after Farian's press conference, Rob and Fab called their own. They were joined by a voice coach who assured the audience that yes, they could sing, which is also a strange thing. I got a voice coach here. He verifies me. Rob and Fab then gave back their Grammys, which they'd planned on doing even before the Recording Academy formally revoked the awards. Sure. In 1991, Farian released The Moment of Truth, a new studio album credited to the real Milli Vanilli, i.e. the singers from the first album. Arista, meanwhile, claimed no prior knowledge of the deception, and Rob and Fab insisted, though, that they did know exactly what was going on and they were a part of this whole hoax. Rob and Fab released a self-titled comeback album in 1993 and even appeared on the Arsenio Hall show to sing for real in front of a real audience. But Rob and Fab flopped, while simultaneously the two were fighting drug addiction. Fab ultimately sobered up, but Rob spiraled out of control. In 1996, he served jail time for assaulting 2 people and breaking into a car, and in 1998, he died of a drug overdose in a Frankfurt hotel room. He was only 33 years old. At the time of his death, Rob had apparently been working with Farian again. I'm totally shocked, the producer told The Independent upon learning of Rob's death. Rob looked really good again. He was full of optimism for the future. We intended to tape material for another album. Fab wasn't involved in that project, but another bizarre twist to the story, he teamed up with John Davis, one of the real singers whose voice he had once lip-synced to, for the project Face Meets Voice, a Milli Vanilli experience. This unlikely duo might make for a good ending to the Milli Vanilli movie that's been in the works since 2007. Filming was all set to begin on the project when director Brett Ratner lost his co-financing deal with Warner Brothers amidst allegations of sexual misconduct. The whole thing was not meant to be, I would say.
So, I have the power of hindsight right now from when this happened. And really great artists, lip syncing is not new. Mm-mm. It's, and I'm sure the artists are like, why do I have to lip sync? And, they're just like, well, it's television, we're developing, we're presenting entertainment. We don't want any snags. We want to see you sing the songs. Mm-hmm. And then it's also not odd to to have people like in a music video, if they replace somebody.
Sure.
I can think of, nobody's going to care, but I can think of examples of that. I think what they're doing is like, well, now this is the person that's going to be taking this place. So they have people singing that part because was already recorded. So I think none of those things are new. And if you look up Ashley Simpson at SNL.
Oh, totally.
Same exact thing. Granted, she, for better or worse, I mean, she's fine. I have no problem with her. Sang her song, at least in the studio with all that came with it. It seems like these two guys, I mean, it's easy to bag on them and, a lot of us did. But when you hear the story about just two people that got caught up in something, I don't think they were out to hurt anybody.
No.
And
do you think they knew, though, initially that they weren't going to sing anything?
I'm sure they probably wanted to, because who doesn't want to do the whole thing? But they're just like, it's like having a ghostwriter, but putting your name on it.
Yeah.
But they had nothing. It's not even they came up with anything. But to give them credit, you could say, well, they didn't sing the songs, but I was like, I guarantee you, if they had the people they had sing it, and I'm just speculating, and didn't package it the same way, no one would have cared. So it really took the vehicle of that to kind of make it work. And they look like kind of like twins. It was a very interesting kind of duo. And I don't know, I think people cared, but I don't think they really cared that much, because it's not like, nobody was just like, oh, Milli Vanilli is just so important, so influential to so many other artists. It was, pop music.
Like fun pop music. And that's the thing too. It's like, also pop music isn't really about the vocals. Like, I bet they went on tour and worked their asses off and danced and fucking did all that shit.
It's not like they got paid, for nothing. And I'm sure I remember them making another album and kind of trying to like a little comeback in that sense. And, it's not going to work. And they were just trying to sound not horrible, but if you're going to compare yourself to the professionals in the studio, which everyone knew and loved. And I remember I think there was a class action suit maybe where you can return the CD or whatever it is you bought, and you collected on that on some kind of small amount. But it was really tragic. And there's a lot of things in history about people that didn't write their own music or play their own instruments. We could talk about like the Monkees or even the Beach Boys in some respects.
I mean, even like famous like Michelangelo having painting assistants that painted, like, these, all artists have these people that do the work for them in a lot of different respects.
You hear Rebecca and I's voice. And you've seen our pictures, but those are models that you're seeing.
This voice can't be as hot as what you see, or can it?